Hype Works episode 3. It's Alex. It's Jake.
Jake again. Back again.
Back again. There's another podcast that uses that line, back again. It's a football podcast, Arsenal. And the guy says,
Really?
We're back again.
I was thinking more the Renegade Master.
Oh, yeah, classic. Back again. No, it's been a busy week, and we've been kind of cracking on. Got some stories to talk about today. We've got the GOAT of tennis, Roger Federer, retiring. We'll talk about it at the end. But first up, we're talking about CES. We were talking about this week, like the theme of CES this year is AR, VR. Everyone's coming out with headsets. We've talked to people making headsets, AR, VR. Apple apparently launching the AR glasses this year. What's the feeling in the tea leaves regarding the AR, VR?
You know, as you know, we've been through this with some people in the industry. The big game changer really is adoption. Adoption of AR, VR is going to change the game. So when Apple, Google, they release their finalized products, people will adopt them. These companies, especially the ones based elsewhere in the world, which don't have huge consumer bases outside maybe their domestic markets, going to be very, very difficult to access international markets unless they have a partnership with Google or Apple or the likes, mostly because the applications are based on their app stores, whether it be Google Play or the App Store for iOS. So then the developers will start making the applications for this. Right now, there's no native way of accessing through the hardware.
Yeah.
So it's a cool space, but right now, nothing is effectively native for the hardware in itself. So they're kind of like fancy projectors right now until Google come along.
You've got the glasses on, right? I got the glasses here. You got the glasses.
Correct.
For me, like it's the product has to look good. Like forget the application. Like if the product doesn't look good, people are not going to put it on their head, right? That's what it comes down to for me.
I mean, there's a couple of things here because I've been wondering that whether some of the brands in the space currently are more like ODMs, meaning that the product is made by a factory and then they will stick a brand on it and then resell it through a distributor in the US or the UK. I do think that the look of the products right now is, especially the non-branded ones, so excluding the Apple and the Google glass here, but the situation is right now they are quite chunky. Some of them have like battery packs on them. Some of them have cables that you have to plug into your phone when you're actually using it. So again, the hardware is not completely rounded off, but then the integration with the software is not there right now. So CES is going to be a breakthrough moment in the industry. We've got all eyes in the technology world on AR, VR. Is going to go huge, especially if you get the big launches of those like application-based software platforms like Apple or Google, so that the developers, the communities around those, whether it be an Android or iOS, will then start developing software that is native for the device. And that's really what's missing. Right now, it's just a projector that sits about a centimeter away from your eyes. But it's cool, and I personally think that AR may be a little bit outpaced by VR in the long run. That's my personal feeling on it.
If you, we've looked at a lot of companies, like who do you think's going to win? Like if you could pick one right now.
Google. 100%. 100%. I just think Google, because imagine everything's on Google Maps. I know that there's other maps out there, like I know there's Apple Maps and what's the other one? OpenStreetMaps is another big one, like an open source mapping application. A lot of EV
Not
charging
not
maps.
Facebook, right? Because Facebook are technically they ship the most hardware right now.
Well, Facebook will probably do well. I think Facebook will be almost like first movers in VR,
Mm,
and then I think Apple will come along, and there'll be a lot of hot competition. And then Google will probably dominate more in the AR space, mostly because of the integration, again, with like the Google Maps and various pieces of software like the Google Lens software as well. It's already in existence. They're already collecting data in images and photographs. And, you could take a photo of the skyline pretty much anywhere in the world,
yeah.
upload it to like Google Lens, and it will be able to identify where you are based upon the skyline. That's incredible.
So say this takes off at CES, and I hope we can go to CES because it's in Las Vegas. We can have fun.
We're going.
Um, say it takes off. Like, what does that mean for like marketing people like us? Like, do we have to like then shift like focus to like from pictures and text over to the quote unquote metaverse slash AR VR, like because we've seen it before, right? Like we worked for companies in the past and they tried to do these like VR launches and they were just bad, like the graphics were bad and the execution's really clumsy. And right now it's lame, right? Like in terms of the actual experience is really lame. Everyone was ripping the piss out of the Facebook guy because it was like Nintendo graphics, like back in the day, like with you know uh I think the question is like, yeah, do we shift our focus like immediately, once the hardware takes off?
The thing with the graphics situation is that the graphics have to be rendered. So therefore you're downloading data, or you have a piece of hardware that would need some sort of
Mm,
processing power to be able to render it natively. So for me, the graphics is it will come on leaps and bounds once everything's done in the cloud. I think Google Chrome, the Chromebook, was ahead of its time. To be honest with you, I think that now we've got the 5G networks and people use the cloud more regularly. I think things like Google, the Chromebooks, will come back if they're not coming back already. The situation with AR VR in terms of like the paradigm shift, I think here's the thing. Okay, so as I don't just work in digital advertising and the buying on the media side, but I also do the social media side as well. I still think social media generally, in most places, we're going to say about 80% of companies here take the 80-20 distribution rule. I think 80% of all of the social media marketing is just fundamentally out of date. It's
yeah.
the space moves on so quickly that companies that don't have a dedicated social media manager
Mm,
that's doing it for the passion rather than some sort of part-time job, they won't keep up within the space. And the reason why they won't keep up within the space is the way in which the algorithms on the Facebook, Instagram platforms, for example, change, the way the platform actually changed in terms of the features and
mm,
the opportunities are there. So you can have stories, reels, taggable products, the way in which the feed displays, such as whether it displays likes, whether it doesn't display likes, how it what's the word, organizes the feed, whether it's based upon the amount of likes and engagement that it's got, or whether it's just random based upon your interest.
mm,
So all of these things are constantly in flux.
yeah.
You have to really live in the social media realm to keep up with the social media
Mm.
world. And I think that 80% of companies don't do that. And henceforth, when I think that we move to the AR, VR space, you'll have the same situation.
So you
Every
have the early
agency,
adopters, right? And then
right?
yeah,
I mean, as soon as that space comes out, we're going to be wearing AR, VR headsets because we're going to have to be able to understand those realms and those worlds. And people that aren't active users of AR and VR will not understand
mm,
how the space is operating, how people are living it. I mean, I'm sure if you take Gen Z today, Gen Z, they're already in the VR world. There's
yeah.
all kinds of things going on in VR that if you're not constantly in that world, you won't understand. I
The
think
thing is as
really.
well, yeah, I was going to say the thing is like when you think about the smartphone replaced a lot of stuff, a lot of
Mhm,
gadgets like
mhm.
camera and obviously TV, and it's replacing a lot of stuff. I think like take your glasses for example. I can imagine like right now we're looking at a laptop and we've got a phone, right? I can
Mm.
imagine your glasses could replace both. You could just me and you could just be wearing glasses, and we could just be like talking to each other with a mic in the glasses and with the camera, and it could all just be done through the glasses, right? Conceivably.
I
So
mean,
yeah,
in a way, that's probably what the next, version of Google Glass is going to attempt to be doing. I mean, Chromebook is one thing that was ahead of its time, but Google Glass as well. The first version was well ahead of its time.
yeah. A big and Chromebooks succeeded because it forced the other guys, the OEMs, to up their game, right? And then they think, oh, this is a good popular product. We're going to make Chromebooks as well, and then obviously proliferated. So someone, say Apple launch in January, everyone and their mother is going to launch glasses next year, right?
I
So
got a question there. Do you think that Chromebook was a success?
financially, probably not, but it forced like the Lenovo's and it forced the Samsungs and all the other OEMs to churn out better laptops. The quality of the laptops got better after the Chromebook.
Mm.
That's my opinion. I don't know if it's fact, but
I think they're my next two investments, to be honest with you. The next gen Chromebook and the next gen AR glasses. That would be
uh,
awesome.
which is a good segue because I tweeted out this BCG graphic this week of the 50 most innovative companies. And these lists are always subjective, right? It's like some MBA makes a list and like everyone's like, oh, they must be the most innovative companies. And I basically said they're all American or Chinese, which is a kind of lie because there's some Japanese ones and there's the odd British and German company in there. But the point being that basically most of these companies are internet software, social, like content, attention based companies. So I think the question I was thinking about was like, what makes an innovative company in 2022? Do you have to be like a social media app or social media company or like a TikTok, someone that gets attention? Like, what is? How the hell did they come up with this list?
I really like a few different kind of companies. I'm gonna name two uh, kind of fringe companies that actually I think they probably appeal more to men. Crypto.com is, I think, a really interesting company based out of Hong Kong, where you are, right? And I think I'm going to take another one, which is going to be a little bit funny, but Manscaped,
Yeah.
the trimmer, the lawnmower. I think that both of these things, maybe, I'll tell you why I think they appeal to men, because they both sponsor UFC and mixed martial arts,
Mm,
which are mostly particularly male dominated audiences.
mm,
However, I think that they're very innovative. I mean, crypto.com is such a cool idea that I could actually utilize the crypto that might exist in my one of my wallets
mm.
as actual currency in the real world. I know friends of mine who actually use it, so I don't think it's bad. I think
But
it's a cool idea.
so you think like so that list is like kind of BS, right? Because it's basically the biggest companies by market cap, and it's
Well, I
random.
think a lot of innovation within those big companies happens because they're actually like buying. Is that? Can you hear that cleaning? Sorry.
No,
Oh, thank God for that. There's a crazy cleaner in this building.
no.
I'm
I mean,
sorry.
so we take it list, right? You've got Apple, Microsoft, Amazon, Google, Tesla, Samsung. Fair enough, you know. But then you've got companies like Huawei, IBM, Dell. Like most people wouldn't really associate those companies with like innovation, right? Like now.
Well, I think Huawei is a bit of an oppo in that sense. Like it puts patents on absolutely
Mm.
everything. So I think that's one measure. There's different ways to measure innovation. Like you've already alluded to, that those lists are quite
Yeah.
subjective.
Your old company is 22, Alibaba.
Alibaba, yeah,
Yeah.
again, I think an unbelievably interesting place. There's a lot of things going on in Alibaba behind the scenes. Like, for
Mm.
example, they develop a lot of their own internal software products, which are quite cool. They integrate a lot of data across all of their different data streams, and their analysis of that data, which is mostly based out of Singapore, is absolutely intense. It's incredible. They've got so much information in the cloud, and the way in which they track people that come into their product world, that interact with any of their products, they track you within their product and off their product. It's incredible, really.
Yeah, and sorry, go on.
I do think it's like innovation, but again, that's innovation in one space. How
Yeah.
somebody outside of Alibaba would decide that Alibaba are the most innovative, I'm not entirely sure. I mean, of course, they're going to be innovative. They've got a lot of money to test and iterate. But this real situation for me is that I just like seeing things that are completely new, which is why I think that crypto.com is a really interesting use case, because maybe it wasn't the first in that space, but it's certainly been one that's held out the longest, and I don't think it's going anywhere fast.
Another of your ex companies, Walmart, number 13. People will be a bit surprised at that. Like, what the hell, you know?
Well, a lot of their innovation is taking place in like 2B supply chains, sort of the introduction of like robotics. They have a lot of robotics within their warehouses, particularly in China. Can't say I know too much about the US, but their supply chains in China, they're looking to be very readily automated.
So basically, innovation is subjective, and it's not equal across different companies. Like,
I mean, you can objectify it, right? So you could actually say, okay, well, these are the different dimensions that we are measuring the measurement of the different categories of innovation. They may be across 5 or 10 dimensions, but I think we could, if it's just across one, it's potentially a little bit subjective. And also, there's like a lot of these companies are not exactly going to be free to share some of the most top secret projects.
right. I think the one for me that I'm quite bullish on is Nvidia, because we're talking about AR glasses, VR glasses. Their chips are going to be in everything. Like anything that needs a CPU, GPU, cars, VR, AR, like everything is going to need Nvidia. So I think out of the list, I'd probably put my savings on Nvidia. But I'm not sure about some of the other companies. Like,
Well,
yeah,
I'm no expert in computer processing, but I think it's because the GPUs, the way that they actually process information is very similar to like how a neural net works, which makes GPUs a great tool over like traditional processors, like a CPU that you would get inside your laptop.
yeah. And just kind of on this subject of BCG, like we've seen in companies in the past, like a lot of these big companies, they hire like BCG, Bain, McKinsey to come in. Like, how can these guys kind of like, these guys didn't invent anything, right? But they're giving the most innovative companies. So how do they have the authority to do that? They're just consultancy. Do they add any value, these companies?
The research firms, I guess,
Yeah.
but I don't know. That's what people. So there's so many functions in the world, isn't there? That if someone's function is that they like researching and they believe it adds value, and someone else believes that information to be valuable, I think it's hard though. Like the more I look at the world, the more avenues I think there are, the harder it becomes. I think these kind of companies are very much traditional, and they exist in a traditional paradigm, and therefore they measure everything in a traditional paradigm, and that's totally cool. It might be run on the bottom line. It might be run on again some old framework that they've developed about what makes an innovative company. But it might not include blockchain companies like crypto.com, because there's a bearish market on crypto right now, and henceforth it doesn't produce the bottom line results that might put it into the top innovation that's happening in the world. But in my opinion, I still think the technology that those crypto companies are based on is very innovative. And it's all in a way, and again, I know that a lot of people are going to think I am deluded. There'll be a lot of commenters comment below that think that crypto is not going to is a con and it's a fraud and it's a Ponzi scheme. I don't believe so. I think the technology there is very real. I think it's going to exist for a very long time, but how it's going to be implemented is what's going to define the future. If nation state governments implement it, for example, centralized digital currencies, then it has the potential to be utilized for good and bad. You know, we've both lived in China. They have the digital yuan. They track all of the transactions. They know where you are based upon your spending history. They own they don't own Ant Financial, but they do keep a close eye on Ant Financial. So the situation is that they've developed this centralized system that you can effectively track everybody through their wallet. Now, they may not enable it to be public, so you don't get to view into other people's wallets, but it still exists on a blockchain, and that information will be stored there for the rest of your life. So the technology is there; it already exists. Now, I think in terms of in the space outside of centralized governments, it's going to be a matter of which one of these blockchain technologies will be adopted first. Some blockchain technologies, for example, like Ethereum before the merge, people might say, okay, well, it's a high energy consumption, so they've reduced the energy consumption. And the same is true of Bitcoin. However, again, these are probably like first mover advantages. I would really be curious to see which ones are going to be integrated into the main systems. For example, you could trade Facebook coin for Solana or Ethereum. I think that actually happened 3 weeks ago, by the way, that the technology was actually implemented to be able to trade perhaps Facebook token with Ethereum, which would be an absolute game changer because you'd see people buying up Facebook token early on.
So basically, the bleeding edge doesn't need consultants, but if you're an older company, you've got more process, you need the consultant to kind of help you do your 2x2 matrix, sort out your business essentially, because otherwise you're going to fall off the face of the earth.
I guess it depends on the consultant. I know somebody, shout out to Liu Shan. I know somebody that works in an incubator for blockchain companies based out of Singapore. And before they did that, they were in Capgemini in consulting. And then afterwards, they were in a VC. This person would be at the cutting edge and they'd still be a consultant. I think maybe our frame of reference for what consultants are as well would also change in the future.
I met someone from EY this week and I asked them, what do you do? And honestly, I got a complete non-answer. Like, it was like, oh my God, like this doesn't sound productive at all. But anyway, as you said, there's people willing to pay for it. Where there's a need, there's a marketplace,
Well, there's also a lot of roles and people within company that at face value, it might look like it's very valuable, but then the reality is what they putting into the workspace, the application of the 80-20 rule.
But you hear all the time startups, like the founders and they build the technology, they disrupt the market, and then once they get a certain size, all the MBAs come in, the consultants, to the adult supervision, right, to kind of get things in line, the ducks in line before the company goes public or so.
Well, I'm with Elon Musk on this one. I don't think you need a degree or an MBA to be innovative or good in business. I think that's just like, are you part of the, MBA boys club? I think that's what it is. I'm not saying that it doesn't give you access to other people that might share your frame of reference or paradigm. It definitely does. But an MBA, it was something that when I was at Walmart, a lot of people were doing an MBA. I was thinking, I better do an MBA. And then I stopped and thought about it and thought, well, why? A lot of people are doing it just for the network.
It looks like a 2-year party from the outside, to be honest. On the golf course, on the country club, You
Right.
know,
It's an old boys club. It's a
it's
cigar room, isn't it?
expensive old boys club.
True.
Uh cool. One of the companies is not on this. Oh, actually, the company is on this list is ByteDance 45. They own TikTok. TikTok was in the news this week because the guy that runs TikTok global, he used to be at Xiaomi. He's a Singaporean guy. So basically, there was this big furor about TikTok in America, and they want to ban it. So they make this Singapore guy CEO to try and make it more global. But then Wall Street Journal came out this week and said this guy is just a talking head. He has no power. All the power is run from the Beijing HQ. So I think TikTok is in the air right now because it's crazy popular. Like everyone's going using TikTok. Like the attention and everything, but at the same time it could be banned in a lot of markets. So like as a marketing person, uh as well as a consumer, should we be investing time in TikTok, or should we kind of resist? And
For me, it's like any kind of investment, isn't it? You need diversification within your portfolio. So
mm,
the actual format, the video content format, it now exists on Instagram and it also exists on YouTube. So in terms of like TikTok, yeah, maybe, but if we're investing in that format of video content, you might as well put it on Reels, and you may as well put it on YouTube Shorts as well. So
mm,
I don't know whether investing in TikTok like as like putting all your eggs in one basket is necessarily a good thing, especially when there's a little bit of uncertainty of whether it'll exist in Western markets in the future. Now, to come back to the point of what the Wall Street Journal article was pointing out, I think that's really a reflection of the culture. Um, China generally runs with the top down culture, with a very centralized point of authority. You see that in their advertising. Okay, Oppo, sponsor of the Champions League, but it's not necessarily about where you sponsor, it's about how you utilize that sponsorship. And because one person at the top wants to sponsor the Champions League for the reasons to get massive amounts of awareness throughout new European markets is fantastic. But then how is that communicated to the customer? It's about leveraging the association rather than just paying to win. You can't pay to win in the West. Maybe you can pay to win in some aspects of China. I've seen that influencer marketing, particularly in China, kind of works, that you can buy a big celebrity and everybody will follow. But again, it's inherent of the culture.
mm-hmm.
People in China are much more subsequent to normative influence in the fact that they will gravitate towards what is norm. So if you've got some big celebrities that start wearing a certain brand, their followers will start wearing it. And then people that think that is also cool or think those people are cool will start wearing it too. Trends in the West just don't exist in the same format. It's the difference between the West and the East, and henceforth why the Wall Street Journal might have that opinion. But I wouldn't necessarily think that they
So
were wrong
basically, you're
either.
saying TikTok's kind of victim of the world right now, the kind of deglobalization. Like it just happens that they're at the wrong place at the right. Sorry, the wrong place at the wrong time.
Well, I
Um,
think the corporate structure of TikTok reflects the nation state culture, the organizational culture of China. That's
mm.
what I think. And I think that some of that is incompatible with Western values and ideas.
But do you not also think like from the other side, like the internet has always been American. Like every company in the internet has been American since day one. And you think like they're worried that they're going to lose their grip on the internet because it was invented there, right? Like military industrial complex, DARPA. Of course, the Tim Berners Lee guy, he was from the UK, but like that's just a browser, right? It's just the top part. So I often think maybe they're a little bit scared they're going to lose grip to India, to China, to these like big emerging players. There's a bit of
Mm,
fear.
I'm not sure if it's about fear, but I'll give you a very clear example of what might make nation state governments nervous about the adoption of TikTok. For those that have never lived in China, they may not know this, but inside China, the TikTok is called Douyin. It's a different app. It's a separate application. It works slightly differently. But I think it's like if you're under 16, then
Limited.
your screen time on this application is limited to an hour, maybe a couple of hours a day. Whereas if you go to the West, it's unregulated, and the content on there is often quite, we'll say, loose, to be nice about it. So that there's often some content on there that's quite loose. It's not censored, and it's not regulated, and it's not restricted to your 8-year-old. But if you go to China, it would be very much a different story. And I think that makes nation states governments nervous, because they're kind of worried that it's a backdoor to China to have media influence within their nation, and to like spread ideas.
But then again, counter argument is American companies spread American ideals. So you've got, Google with their kind of liberal agenda, and it's impossible to answer the question. We know that the application is addictive. Like, it's when you scroll through TikTok, like, you're served up these videos. They're fun to watch. They're fast. There's no tag. There's no like searching. There's no feed. You're just getting content like served up all the time.
Right.
And we saw it in China and other places on the metro, right? When you see people, it's just like flicking video.
Yeah.
It's everywhere. And I think it's eventually, I think they're going to have to spin it off. I think they'll have to say Douyin is China, and then TikTok will be a public company owned by shareholders and institutional people. I think that's probably what's going to have to happen.
I mean, will it though? Look at Alibaba.
Correct.
Look at Alibaba. And even if it was, would people have faith in the company? The people invest in these companies to make money. It's not because they agree with the ethics or the morality.
But TikTok is making money though, right? They're getting more and more of the marketing budget.
Oh, I'm sure. And you know what? As well, Chinese companies that want to expand overseas, take my word for it, love TikTok. Why? You get huge
numbers,
very low cost per view, very low cost per mil, very low cost per click. The only problem I have, that having used TikTok for digital advertising, is even though you get like a lot of clicks, it's what's the quality of the lead? What's the quality of the acquisition? Yeah, the cost may be low, but maybe the conversion, let's say that you're driving towards a conversion goal of like a sale. I tend to find that you don't convert many leads, which may in itself present a problem, because you may have other advertising software plugged into your site. Let's again say Shopify for the example, although I could have said AliExpress, and it will confuse it with regards to the demographics and the profiling of people that actually might be interested in your product or service.
Another thing we know as well is that we work with creators and KOLs, and they have like two revenue streams, right? They've got the ad revenue and they've got the brand deals. Right. And the like YouTube gives them the ad revenue, it gives them the brand deals. TikTok really only gives them brand deals. They're not getting monetized. And we saw this week, we posted our first shorts this week, and it was a good week to post them, because YouTube also announced they're going to monetize the shorts. So basically, YouTube are kind of going after TikTok, saying, you post your short videos on our platform, we're going to pay you. And TikTok don't have that.
Right.
So interesting to see how they respond to that.
True. I mean, I know that other social media platforms are following suit here. I think Instagram is going to be the next one. But TikTok does have a marketplace for creators, which is something that is unique. So it's easier for the smaller influencers to be able to strike up deals with brands.
Yeah.
But slowly, Instagram, YouTube are eating market of TikTok.
Yeah. Final one on TikTok. Are we going to post on TikTok? As in, how it works?
Oh, that is a great question. I think right now we can. I think we maybe should. The situation really is there's an operational cost to every channel that you expand into. That's the situation. It's not easy to run 4 or 5 social media channels. And so often when we have our clients, we see that they spread themselves far too thin. They're too diversified, which means that the amount of like backing, the amount of cost or the money or whatever it is that they put, the effort, the energy, the resources that they put into each of the channels is too thin for them to be able to drive any real impact. At some point, what we should be doing, let's say that we do post on TikTok, is we again need to apply the 80-20 rule and go, okay, well, where's the money driver? What's the, where's the attribution for the conversion? And then invest in there. Maybe we should get on WeChat channels.
Yeah. I think and the other thing I see is like there's this argument where do you make one piece of content for all the platforms or do you make like different content for each platform? I think that debate's still kind of ongoing right now because it's so easy just to make one piece of content and then chop it up, right? But I think the big guys are actually have, if you've got resources, you're going to have dedicated teams to put content on each platform, right? So I think it's a question of how much resource you have as a company or creator, I guess.
If we're talking 9:16 aspect ratio videos that we'll call them TikTok style videos for the sake of this, then put it on WeChat, put it on Instagram, put it on YouTube, put it on TikTok. Now's the time. But if we're talking about like each platform, Twitter might have a specific purpose or an objective within your social media strategy, and Instagram might have a different one because the demographics that exist on those platforms are generally split male on Twitter, female on Instagram. So also it depends upon your target audience and who you're going after on those platforms, which me personally, I would always opt for a differentiated strategy that's more focused. Every time we talk with a client, we have specific goals with each channel, with each platform, because we can drive more efficiency if we optimize the content on that platform and make it made for platform purpose.
Yeah. What do you think about the so there's this debate right now in the ad tech thing about the numbers and the transparency. Like, do you think, like, we know the TikTok numbers are massive. Are these like fake numbers? Are they juicing the numbers, or are they like real?
That's something that me and some of my colleagues at Alibaba used to discuss all the time, mostly coming back to the quality of the acquisition. It's hard to say, isn't it? I mean, the thing is, it's how you read the metrics and what's important to you. Quite often when we're working with clients in China, they love a huge number.
Big numbers,
the number isn't necessarily important, is it? It's how it moves the needle towards your ultimate objective. If your objective is sales, it doesn't matter whether you've got 30 million views or 30 views on a video. What matters is the bottom line.
Engagement, But that's the problem, right? All of the social media platforms are are set up for big numbers. Like that's how that's how KOLs, creators, platforms pitch companies, and they just say, here's our subscriber list, here's our followers. Right now, the whole thinking is numbers, right? Big numbers. And what you're saying is basically forget that, like focus on results, engagement, play the long game. Play the long game.
I agree. I mean, of course I agree.
Yeah.
But the situation is that the tactics within the marketing on the digital space are becoming far more sophisticated than just numbers, because the markets are becoming far more saturated, and people have to be able to compete mostly on a set of principles that resonate with a particular audience rather than just going mass market. If there's a lot of choice, people don't have to choose you. Exposure is just one element. It's really about how people evaluate your brand and how people feel post-purchase and whether they're likely to refer it to somebody else.
So let's see what happens with TikTok. It's going to be interesting to watch, and I think they're not going to get anywhere. Like if, for example, like I saw that YouTube has more users in India than like all of the other markets like combined in terms of the viewership. It's like if they don't have India, like they're not going to be a global platform, right? You need to be able to be available in all the big markets. So I don't know how that's going to
I mean, look at
evolve.
Facebook though. Facebook are building infrastructure in
Yeah.
India just so that they can maintain dominance there.
Mm-hmm.
India is the future. India's the future. You know, a population that's going to be bigger than China. I'm not sure what it is now, 1.5,
Something
1.6 billion.
1.4, yeah, 5, yeah, something like that. But
Incredible. It's 20% of the world's population, basically.
yeah. Speaking of something that touches the world's population, subject close to your heart, music. I was reading this week, Time magazine had a big piece on Blackpink. Hands up, I actually don't mind a bit of Blackpink. I like a little bit of Blackpink. Obviously, crazy popular here in Asia. But the criticism on the article was like, and this probably happens to a lot of bands, artists, is like they have a breakthrough, right? They have a new voice, a new direction. But then the problem is the commercial side kicks in, right? Because when the record labels come in, they say, "Oh, we can make money from this artist," and then they change the band into like a formula. So like the criticism in the article was like, "Well, Blackpink have a lot of potential, but actually they're becoming very formulaic. They're becoming very commercial. Their music's kind of tailored towards like different brands and different like markets." Do you think that's a valid criticism, and do you think that's a worry for like music as a whole? Like with Spotify and like these big platforms, dictating a lot of the kind of what's the artistic direction.
Yeah, I've always held a strong position on this. I mean, I personally like my music to be artistic. So I really like an artistic expression. Though the other day, one of our good close friends, shout out to Tim Page, came
Every
to
week we
Thailand.
every week we share a Tim Pitch.
Yeah, that's true. Um, yeah, shout out to Tim Page. We were talking about that Drake song. Well, not Drake actually, Travis Scott, and the production on that track is a really interesting track. The track is called Sicko Mode. Okay, and it's just a really interesting production. There's like several voices on there that are ad libs from other artists, not actually the artist, but they're distorted, so you wouldn't know it if you didn't know it. You might know it if you watched the music video, but you wouldn't know it if you just listened to the track. Anyway, we searched out who were the songwriters on the track and who were how many people were in the production. And there was a team of like 40 people just listed on the Wikipedia page. That doesn't even include perhaps like any kind of like assistant producer
Yeah.
or ghostwriter. So how many people actually produced that track is kind of unknown. Now, again, it could come down to what is the definition of like artistic, like artistry. How do you say it, Alex?
Artistic direction.
No, like
Artistic
artistry. Is that it?
artistry.
Artistry. Yeah, that's it. Um, it could come down to your subjective definition.
Mm.
But the reality is, I mean, me personally, uh, I'm a big fan of like almost like singer songwriters and bands, or even music producers like DJs, like that actually produce their music that's made as an expression rather than just to sell. And I
Hmm.
think that that's part of the issue that we see within the music industry, that some people do it for the love and some people do it for the money. And again, it may be down to personal choice. My feeling today, though, is that the record labels have so much influence, especially in like modern forms of music content consumption, Spotify, uh, even MySpace back in the day,
Yeah.
that it's changed the nature of the game. When you were growing up in the 90s, the charts were very different because it was probably like 20 to 30-year-olds going out and purchasing albums at Virgin Megastores, HMV, or
Hmm.
whatever the American equivalent of those were, like record shops, and that would define the charts. That would be popular music, pop music, like we know it. What's changed the game these days is it's like 15-year-olds
Yeah.
streaming on Spotify that's
Yeah.
defining what is popular music and popular culture. So I think there's been a shift in demographic that's also based about the consumption
So
of music.
that's a great argument from the artistic side, but then you'll get guys like the record label guys and the Spotify guys. They'll turn around and say, "Jake, but Blackpink they've only released 30 songs in their how many years they've been active, which is tiny number, right? But then they're the most followed girl band in the world on social media. They've all got like 60, 70 million followers on Instagram. Commercially, they're massive success. Like that would be the counter argument, right? They're successful. People like the music in general and they're successful. What's not to like? And so they're the biggest girl band, and then they would apply the same to like Harry Styles, another guy who's got a good voice. Like we know he's got a good voice, but then all the songs are, as we know, quite meh. You know, like everyone's like, oh, it's melancholic, but it's not like it doesn't really strike home. And he's the same, you know, like very successful commercially, sells out every arena. Everyone loves him. You know, he walks that line between the, you know, like the romantic guy and the LGBT, and like, you know, he touches a lot of bases. So how can you be critical of these artists, you know?
I mean, for me, it's just what I'm not critical of them. For me, it's like the distribution channels of music don't necessarily fall in favor of artists. You know, I want to see more projects by
You're
successful.
saying it's not their fault. You're saying it's not their fault. They're just in the system, right?
Yeah, I'm saying that, the system might be a little bit overpowered. I don't think it would be like a meritocracy. I don't think it would be fair. I mean, is anything fair? I'm not sure.
So who's so if they're in the system, who's not in the system? Who's like out there doing his thing, her thing, and is still successful? The music is good.
You know, it's funny you should say that, because the other day I did see a little documentary on the Arctic Monkeys and why they became famous, basically. And effectively, they were giving out free copies of like their band's recording. They weren't selling them at the end of the gigs. They were just giving out copies of these CDs.
Yeah.
And people started uploading them to streaming sites like MySpace and YouTube. People were sharing them Bluetooth on mobile phones. This was almost like the birth of the music age on the internet. And when they released their first single, everybody already knew the song. Everybody knew the words, because
to be fair though, that was a different era though. Like I mean, like today, who's today who's like busting out the system? Like who's ignoring all the kind of the channels and the kind of matrix?
Well, I became a big fan of the Black Keys for that reason, to be honest with you. I'd never really listened to their music. I mean, maybe one or two of their songs that had made it big in the charts, but I'd never really taken the time to appreciate them as a band. I think that's the thing, though. As the times changed, the culture around music has changed. It's no longer people going into record stores and buying like a 12-track double-sided vinyl. You know, it's people.
I'll drop a name who I think's not following convention, and I'm not being biased because he's from Scotland, but I think 2 weeks ago, Lewis Capaldi put out these billboard ads, and we'll put it on the screen, where he's basically lying naked, and he's not the most aesthetically pleasing guy. I think he's not really following the rules. Like he's not that conventional guy.
I agree. I like him. I like his persona.
He's a bit like Ed Sheeran, but like in musically, but he's not like Ed Sheeran in terms of like following the kind of script, you know, in terms of the vibe and I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, shout out to Ed Sheeran, really. I know that some of his songs are co-written with songwriters, but I mean, I don't know anymore. I hope that he still gives credit to the songwriters, and they still make money off the tracks.
Yeah.
I know that this was a while ago, before he was like the success that he is now. I know that he would often tour some smaller tours with the people that helped co-write some of the songs, and he would go around some of these countries. I do think Ed Sheeran is another artist that actually popped into my head, and
Yeah.
maybe it's a good thing because he is the most listened to artist in the world on Spotify. So maybe like unique talent does shine through in the end. And he's a guy that if you look back, I mean, I remember seeing him break onto the scene on YouTube. Really, he was like a YouTube artist because he was like a little ginger kid that could occasionally rap and play a guitar. But yeah, props to him. I hope he still supports the grassroots.
What about have you listened to Bad Bunny? I was checking the Billboard charts. This guy Bad Bunny is like all over it.
No,
I haven't
I
listened to all
haven't,
his
but I
music.
have heard Cardi B and Little Nas
Cardi
X.
B's one of those that kind of is, yeah. Lizzo, Cardi B, same kind of thing.
Yeah, I mean, Cardi B. Maybe she's a product of the modern day culture, but I think that some of her music is a little bit explicit.
What about The
Personally,
Weeknd? What's your thoughts on The Weeknd? Mainstream, but
I mean, I would have to look more into his like writing styles, but again, I know that he's got a few exceptional songs, a few exceptional tracks. Yeah, no doubt.
so basically on the music side, uh, do you think it's like near term? Do you think we're going to be in a good spot in terms of like music, or do you think where are we at? Like in your
My
taste in your
estimation is that the music industry is very much following the trends of like the normal business industry,
life?
whereby there's some companies like we in the sense of music record
Yeah,
labels that
yeah.
totally dominate the space, and it makes it much harder for breakthrough artists and bands or
And the
DJs.
streaming's a duopoly, right? Spotify and Apple. So you're either on one or the other.
Right. And
Yeah.
I don't think that that's a great way for artists to get recognized.
Yeah.
Maybe though in the future they'll almost be like a band or a musician that does what Andrew Tate did, basically, like
Yeah.
sort of plays the system.
Well, Jay-Z tried to do that with Tidal, right? He tried to say we're just gonna have our own streaming service, but it didn't work ultimately.
Didn't
Well, he actually made a lot of money from it. To be fair, when they sold it, he made a lot of money, but it didn't go mainstream. It
wasn't Deezer also one of those? And that was
These
like,
are still going, I think, but in France, right? Popular in France.
I have no idea.
I think it's kind of
Don't
dead
use
now.
it.
And the
I
other one
use
was
Spotify.
SoundCloud was the other one, but SoundCloud, I used it, but just didn't make any money and didn't grow.
Well, I also used SoundCloud back in the day in like
Yeah.
2012, and it was really good for independent producers and
Yeah.
musicians. But I think everybody's got to be on like Spotify,
Yeah,
Apple
yeah.
Music these days.
And even
Everyone.
YouTube as
Yeah.
well. Final one. I was watching it this morning when I woke up. Roger Federer, last ever tennis match. He was greeting in tears. Personally, for me, like he was a bit of a ledge because like he was a guy that in tennis, like tennis was all about brute force. So the most powerful guys, the Rafas, the Novaks, they just smash it. And this guy, he was just so elegant and graceful, and it brings up the old like metaphor in life, like, but nice guys always come last, right? But Roger actually bucked the trend, and he actually won a lot. But he was a nice guy. Never said a bad word about anyone. Never got angry. Never throw the racket. Never like do any Novak style like tantrums. So basically, do you think like he's a good role model in today's era, like to win?
Yeah. He's
Yeah.
still, I can't say I'm a huge tennis fan, but Roger Federer is my favorite personally.
Mm-hmm. Just the way he carries himself, right?
It's got finesse. It's got class.
Yeah. And that's
the reality.
That's how you should live your life, right? Like,
correct.
Don't badmouth people.
Yeah, I mean, it will play out in the long term as well. Like when people talk about the greatest of all time, whether it's in golf or football or business, MMA,
MMA.
anything. It could be anything. There may be people that burst onto the scene and they're an explosion of colors and words, but then I think when people look back and reflect in 15 years, it's like, well, whose morality did we like the most? Who was the?
I mean, we're talking about the Queen there. Like the Queen obviously carried herself very well.
End of an
And
era.
yeah. But I mean, again, Tom Cruise with Top Gun this year, the guy picks and chooses his films. He doesn't make that many movies, but obviously everyone loved it.
Yeah.
There's a lot of examples.
Have
But
to say, Tom Cruise is a low key goat.
yeah,
I will say that because I watched Edge of Tomorrow literally yesterday. Have you seen it?
What's that? What's that one?
It's fantastic actually. You should go you should
Yeah.
go and watch it. It's a
That
great
one of those
film, but
older ones, like 90s or late.
2014.
Is it? Oh, jeez.
Yeah. Honestly though, the character development in the film, I think it pays testament to how good
These
Tom
guys
Cruise
are all
is as an
dedicated,
actor.
eh? Like Federer, Tom Cruise, like it's dedication to the craft. That's what they all have in common, isn't it?
Oh, 100%. Same with Ed Sheeran. Same
Yeah.
with Ed Sheeran. It's like their willingness to fail and get better. They put
Yeah.
themselves out there,
Yeah.
and if they fail, they'll start again at their beginnings. That's it.
Yeah, it's nuts.
It's that's how you should live your life. You said it.
Mm.
That's how you
But
should live your life.
who's I know you mentioned MMA, like who's the one person that you look up to in terms of like celebrity, like one or two?
MMA.
No, I mean
MMA.
anything, anything,
MMA,
like
fastest
famous
growing
people.
sport in the world. So,
I mean anyone famous, like in the history, like celebrity, artist.
oh, that's a tough one. That's a really hard question. I mean, when you said MMA, I was thinking Khabib.
Khabib.
Um, I really was, the guy lives in the
I thought you were gonna
mountains
say
with.
like Frank Bruno or something.
No, no. Mike Tyson almost crossed my lips, but then I remembered that he'd been to prison and
Done
was a
some weird
serial
stuff.
offender.
Yeah.
But, the mindset of a champion at the same time. I mean, I can respect him in that, but is he a role model? Probably not. Same with Conor McGregor, not a role model.
No.
Khabib, potential, but I don't know enough about him. He seems a lot more humble. Who else? That's a tough one. I mean, the whole thing as well is like Messi, easily one of the best humble, quiet character.
Yeah.
Who else? Who else is on there?
I for a long time I thought Jeff Bezos until I found out about he ditched the wife. That wasn't very nice. I mean, obviously, tech guys we'd say Jobs because Jobs like hired himself like super charismatic and he changed the world, blah blah blah.
Some
But
people didn't like him though.
some people didn't like him. But
it's a tough question. That it's a tough question.
Politicians, no one really in politics. I don't think.
Yeah,
But they always burn themselves. The politicians, like they do something stupid.
I think that's life, though, isn't it? Everybody's got good and bad, yin and yang.
Yeah.
No one's perfect.
No, that's the truth. That's the truth. Like no one's perfect.
Yeah.
Always.
David Beckham. What about David Beckham?
The thing with David Beckham is he wasn't the greatest footballer. So like, for me, like
was he such a sensation?
Just marketing, right? Like branding, image. He's not one of these amazing legendary talents. You can't put him on the same level as like Ronaldo and Messi. So I don't think he would go there. But
I mean, he was for some people, though. It depends again how you define it.
Yeah, I don't know.
I wouldn't put him up there with like Messi, Ronaldo, but I can understand why. I mean, Thierry Henry, completely underrated.
A lot in the business community, like America, you have Gates, you have Jobs, Buffett. In the UK, you've got like Branson,
Felix
Dennis, like these guys, Dyson, the Dyson guy.
James Dyson,
yeah. But these guys are, they're just human beings,
Alan
right?
Sugar?
Yeah. They're human beings. They've got their flaws,
Right.
The Dyson guy was like Brexit, and then he pied off to Singapore, right, with Dyson, and Sugar. I don't know, like Sugar's not. He did a lot of dodgy
he's
stuff.
the Donald
as well.
Trump of the UK, isn't he? Really.
Kanye.
A legend, really. Again, another one that mindset. his mindset is what differentiates him.
Mhm.
Really, really believes that he can do anything, and then he goes and does it. And yeah, he has built that reputation, which is almost like, I'm going to watch what this guy does because it may be amusing, but it may be complete genius, and you can't take that away from him.
He is a bit of a genius. I watched an
He
interview.
loves using that word.
Yeah. He said something this week. He said he doesn't believe in. So he said he likes to actualization. That was his thing. But
Well, that sounds like Maslow, 1980.
he's kind of out there, like in his own thing. I don't know.
Yeah, he really is. He's a genius. I think he's a genius. I think he's a genius. Not just in music, in business.
Right, mate. We're gonna wrap up. That was a good episode. Let's do the next one next week. What's gonna happen in the world? What's happening?
Ooh, we don't know. I think next week's going to be exciting. I feel like next week's going to be an exciting one.
Yeah, we're gonna go into the last quarter of this year already, which is kind of nuts.
Yeah. Summer ends, doesn't it?
Summer
ending
over.
Today. Is it today?
I think it's today. Yeah, summer is officially over. So winter is coming.
Winter's coming.
Winter's coming.